pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Oh, you know what? We haven't met since President Bush passed away, correct?
Sir?
We haven't met since.
No. So if
You know,
wanna do
actually, I apologize. If we could actually stand, we actually lost a president since our last meeting. So we should have a moment of silence for the late President Bush. Thank you.
And if you can, recognize firefighter Roy Ottawissa.
Oh, good call. You want to do that? Mike, you want to do that?
Firefighter
As
Roy.
long, yeah, sure, if you don't mind. Yeah, as long as everyone's standing. Also, Worcester Fire Department lost a member last week. A moment of silence for firefighter Roy and his family. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before we get started on the recognition piece, Chief Brown, Deputy Chief Tom Brown, would like to make an introduction to the board of a new member of the department or working with the department.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce to the board Karen DiRienzo. Karen is our new mental health clinician who will be with us in a part-time capacity for the next 2.5 years in accordance with the Cummings grant, 100K for 100 communities grant. We were awarded the grant this year through the efforts of Captain Skeen, who is also here. In this capacity, Karen is working within the police department to provide help and support for residents and guests to Burlington who are coping with any mental health issues across the entire spectrum. Karen was interviewed and selected from a large pool of qualified candidates, and we are confident that her professional background and skills are well suited to this position. She is a native of New Jersey. However, she's now a 17-year resident of the town of Burlington, and she and her husband have 3 children going through the Burlington schools. And she also holds a license as a licensed independent clinical social worker. Karen, as our mental health clinician, is a big part of the mental health initiative that we are undertaking through this grant as a department. Along with mental health training for all of our officers and dispatchers, Karen is bringing that essential human component to this initiative, working side by side with officers and providing essential follow-up and making every effort to prevent anyone from falling through the cracks, as unfortunately we often hear about in the system. We are confident that Karen is going to assist us greatly in helping people of all ages and from all walks of life get the support they need regarding mental health issues that affect virtually everyone in various forms at any time in our lives. So I'd like to introduce Karen DiRienzo. Karen, come on up. Karen.
Thanks, Karen.
Congratulations.
Welcome. Thank you very much.
Karen, welcome aboard.
Thanks, Chief. I know this has been, we've done a lot of work here. You folks have done a lot of work in this area. I know the fire department and police department have had challenges, in this whole area of, it starts with the opioid, addiction piece and carries to the mental health issues. And it's something, there's a lot of cracks in our society in this area. So hopefully this will help some of our citizens here in town. And I want to commend Captain Skeen on another fine grant writing. And thanks to the Cummings Foundation, I think that's our 3rd grant in the last several years, 2 through the police department, I know 1 through Council on Aging for assistance as well. So Cummings Foundation is a great partner to us in this area. So that's our 3rd 100 for 100 grant from them in the last few years. So, great partnership with them. And of course with Parry, who's running the other program. So thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
And now we have Chief Brown, but also Chief Yetman and Chief Patterson, Assistant Chief Patterson from the fire department. They're just going to talk about an incident that occurred just before Thanksgiving, and some of the, I'm not sure how to put this, but it was an interesting rescue, from various pieces, and it just shows the complications that, fire and police, come about in their, regular lives. And so we have several members from the fire department who were on that shift that night, as well. I think Sergeant Carlson's here. You were the shift commander, or you were on duty for the police side that evening. So they're going to go over the incident that had some precedent recently, but, wanted to present to the board. Chief?
So I'll start with the police side of it, which is how this call began. So it was November 16th, 2018 at 4:41 in the morning. Officer Dan Main, who was working dispatch that evening, received a silent 911 call that was subsequently abandoned. Officer Main tried to call the number back 3 times over several minutes and was unable to connect the call. At approximately 4:43, Officer Main received a second silent 911 call. Approximately 1 minute later, he was able to call the number back and the call was connected. However, there was no response to any of his questions, so he dispatched a unit to the area of Vandegraff Drive for the abandoned call, which is what the 911 system was giving us for a location. At 4:48 in the morning, Officer Main was able to make contact with the caller and was able to identify him. At that point, the caller reports that he was sleeping in a dumpster behind Market Basket, and he was now in the back of a garbage truck, and he had been crushed by the compactor on 2 occasions. Not knowing exactly where he is, or he was at the time, or what company was operating the truck, units were dispatched to the surrounding areas to locate any garbage trucks that were in operation. Woburn PD and Lexington PD were subsequently put on notice and asked for their assistance in looking out for any potential trucks as well. At 4:52 in the morning, another incoming call from the victim shows that he was somewhere on Cambridge Street. Officer Houston then responded to the Market Basket location to get the names of the dumpster companies and discovers that the truck is likely being operated by Crescio. Sergeant Carlson at that point began to ping the cell phone and was able to locate the phone within a distance of 66 meters, or approximately 200 feet, of 34 Cambridge Street. Based on this information, officers were dispatched to the area to shut down Cambridge Street at the Woburn line and also Wayside Road. At 5:03 in the morning, units were dispatched to the rear of Panera Bread at 34 Cambridge Street, where Officer Gandevia located a Crescio truck. He's then followed there a short time later by Officers Smith and McGee. As Officer Gandevia arrives, he's able to communicate with the victim, but the driver is unable to access the rear of the truck, but he's able to speak to the victim through the truck. He can actually, communicate with him through there, but they're unable to get into the truck. And at 5:05, the fire department was contacted and responded, where I'll let Chief Yetman take over from the fire department.
And at 5:05, we received a call from the PD. Engine 1 with Lieutenant Ficasello, firefighter Cadillac, and firefighter Holy were dispatched along with A1 with firefighters Grenier and Kane. Armstrong paramedics were also notified. On arrival, after an assessment, Lieutenant Ficasello asked for the shift commander, Captain Connery, to show, and also the tower for the equipment and expertise that we're going to need to get this victim out. So the tower responded with firefighter Rich Hovas and firefighter Tom McLeod. This is a different situation. I mean, between the 2 departments, we do dozens of calls a day, but, there's a handful in your career that, are at the top of the heap, and this is certainly one of them. Because of the situation. They had to use ladders to get up to the truck. They had to use other ladders to get down inside the truck. Lighting was an issue because of the time of the day. This was a recycling truck that picked up cardboard, and it had been raining and snowing, and this was a truck full of cardboard that was wet and basically came apart in your hands as you were taking it out. So the victim had to be found. He was towards the bottom of the truck. So this was just an extended operation for us. From the time that we got on the scene to the time we extricated this patient was about an hour. So they had to use specialized equipment. We had to do lights, ladders. We used a Stokes basket, which is a basket that a hard basket we put a patient in. The patient, because of his injuries, had to be treated with care. Like I said, it took about an hour to get this person from the back of the truck out and being attended to by paramedics and firefighters. This victim was transported to the hospital. Since he has actually been discharged to a rehab, this gentleman had multiple injuries. Time had to be taken. This patient's condition was severe. He suffered fractured neck, back, multiple rib fractures, 3 fractures to the legs, fractured arm, and as far as we know, he's been discharged to a rehab unit and is still there recovering. But it just shows you the cooperation between the departments, between the Burlington Police Department, the Burlington Fire Department, and our local ALS service, and how we work together as a team. It's just, this is an extraordinary event for us.
So I just asked them to come this evening and congratulate our officers and firefighters who were on scene that night. It was, you know, to think about the way things work today. You know, we're talking about issues, and homelessness is one of those issues, and for a person to have to use a dumpster, you know, as a temporary place to sleep, and then be caught up in, you know, what occurs. And so fine work on behalf of our, you know, police and fire department, you know, with the assist, you know, on the outside from Armstrong. So we just thought it'd be an opportunity to explain to the town, you know, the unique aspects of the job we do. And so again, we just wanted to have those firefighters and police officers here and just pass on a job well done, you know,
This
to all
was
of
the
them.
crew that worked that call behind me.
So the guy's okay, the guy's been released and he's in a
I
rehab?
released from the hospital into a rehab facility.
Wow, just when you think you've seen it all, I guess. Jimmy, any comments?
I know, I just want to commend everyone from the beginning to the end, both departments. It was that professionalism that got the victim rescued, and probably, and I'm gonna say that's the reason why he's alive today, is because the people in this room right here, your lifesavers.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with Jim. Yeah, the police and fire, as the chief mentioned earlier, you know, work very well together. But, yeah, this is certainly a very unique situation, kind of remarkable it didn't get the press. I was expecting this to be on all the major networks, but it really got very little attention at the time. But, John, I think that's great. We get these people here. You know, they do a great job day in and day out. Folks don't necessarily see all the good work that we do here. You know, the fire department's pretty unique in itself. I mean, there's, you know, everything the fire department does, they do as a team. There's no one individual when they get out there. You know, we've got 66 members with 66 different personalities, but when that bell rings, they go out the door as one, and they do a heck of a job when we need them. So the community should be quite proud of our police and fire departments. Thank you, everybody.
Kind of a unique situation, but not a unique story. I feel like it's a couple of times a year, the police are in here to be recognized. A couple of times a year, the fire department's in here to be recognized. It's sort of like an umpire or in baseball. When they're doing their job, you don't really hear about it. And so I'm glad that we took the time to recognize a positive outcome, because sometimes it's a lot easier to just, for people to recognize a negative one. So, you know, you mentioned that they don't get the recognition, and I agree, but it always seems like, you know, we all know somebody that they saved my life here, or they delivered a baby. I think we had somebody delivered a baby a couple of years ago, and it's
I don't know if he's here a couple of
yeah.
or not, but
So I'm glad we took the time to do this, and we should always do this. So on behalf of the, certainly on behalf of the board, and also, I guess, on behalf of the residents of the town, I would thank all you guys for the work that you do, and convey, obviously, that it's much appreciated, which hopefully you already know. But I'm glad we took the time to do this.
Oh, and as hopefully you hear from me, you know, often enough that I can say our fire and police departments are leaders within their own communities. You know, fire and police departments, I hear from area chiefs all the time, you know, that Burlington's at, you know, the top of the heap when it comes to, you know, police and fire, and we've got unique talents here. We're ahead of the game in a lot of areas, and including right now, I know, you know, people come to us to talk about the rescue task force. You know, that's a joint operation between fire and police. And, you know, we've actually got a couple of folks on, you know, that task force. Chief Kent from the police department, Ed McLean from the fire department represents, you know, on a statewide task force, you know, our community, you know, as to, because we, again, we're one of the first to accomplish that and to take the steps to do that. So we're ahead of the curve here, and it shows in the level of service that's provided to our citizens. So again, we talk about it here, but, we certainly, congratulate and commend, both our fire and police. And we've had to grow those departments the last couple of years, and that's because of the level of calls. Burlington is unique. We have that commercial district here, which, brings good and bad, to the town. The good is great taxes, and the opportunity to be here in town. And again, I can't stress enough having a partner like Leahy, right in town. Having that hospital here is a huge advantage. I was talking to a chief from another town yesterday, and we're just talking about even the turnaround time on our ambulance calls. Because many of your calls, you're there, and then you only got another mile or two to get to the hospital. You look at some of the towns who deliver, to Leahy, it's 20 minutes just to get to the hospital and then 20 minutes back to town. So, that downtime, on the ambulance, we don't have downtime. As soon as you're at the hospital, you clear out and then you're back, available for call, right outside the hospital again. So there's great opportunities in that, and so we certainly, are at the top, and we can speak highly of both our, police and fire departments, and hopefully we do.
Do we have the 911 where you actually can pinpoint a cell phone? Do we have that? What is it, Next Gen 911?
Next Gen 911, yes.
Okay, because I know sometimes with a cell phone, it can be kind of dicey. And sometimes, it used to be you could only come within a quarter of a mile. So we encourage people when they call 911 to use the house phone if they can. But that's good. I'm glad that's in place. So as has been stated, thank you. Thanks, everybody in the room. And if you could all convey our thanks and our gratitude to the folks that you work with, that would be appreciated. Thank you. You guys are welcome to stay, too. You don't have to leave.
Better than reality TV sometimes,
Yeah, one more pickup, that guy probably wouldn't have.
Peace out.
Yeah. He actually, he's the driver, skip the pickup.
You guys are on mic.
No kidding.
You're on mic.
What are we here for? Is that library?
Library, but that's at 7:50, so,
We,
5:50.
is that, should we?
Yeah, you have to wait.
We do, okay. Okay. Okay, do you want to do 247? Do we have?
So we're going to need to postpone this in the sense that, so we have 2 members missing due to health issues tonight. It's that time of year. So 2 members called in, and where Jim, is, unavailable, I think this should wait. But we do have a settlement with the police command contract, so I was going to present that to the board. 3-year contract, that covers fiscals 17, 18, 19. Similar to, the other contracts we've done. I was going to present that to the board for approval, but we probably should hold that for the next meeting, as we'll only have 2 members of the board voting for that capacity, this evening.
Okay,
So, based on our sickness issue tonight.
is there a
that off?
time issue with this? Like, do we have to make?
No, so this will be
special-
presented at town meeting. So
Okay.
it's a warrant article at town meeting. So there's no deadline to get it done tonight, so it's fine to hold till January meeting. But I would be concerned with only having 2 members voting on this
Sure.
for quorum purposes.
Sure. So we're going to postpone that. Do you want to postpone it to the first January meeting or to?
Yes, well, there's only 1 meeting in January prior to, because the second meeting is
Okay.
the night of town meeting, so we'll postpone it to the first meeting in January.
Okay. All right, so we'll postpone that one. We're a little bit ahead. Do we have to wait for the audit committee? or
No,
can we-
you can do that.
So, Mike, so the next item is 248, an appointment to the audit committee, and I remember seeing an email from Mike the other day talking about the strength of the candidates. So the audit committee, I know, is a group that works closely with, historically, it's been Paul, and now it'll be John going forward. To get 5 quality candidates for 3 spots, and to have 3 of them be CPAs, I felt like, that made me feel pretty good about the type
Yeah,
of people that are putting their names forward. Did you, I've had an opportunity to go through this. Did you guys have questions? John, did you want to say anything? I mean, it's pretty straightforward what it
It's
is.
straightforward, so maybe just history. The board did set up an audit committee, I want to say 5 years ago, approximately, when Dan Grattan was on the board, he had set up the audit committee. And so, so it's been active. They meet definitely when the audit comes out at the end of the year each year. And so this is a change in the format of the committee. So it's up to the board as to, where you wish to go with these appointments.
Okay. So in discussing the candidates, like I said, we had 5. So can we, I personally looked at it just from the standpoint of when you say audit, I see CPA. I'm open to discussing whatever you guys want to discuss. How deep a dive do they do into this?
So they are not doing the audit.
Okay.
What they're doing is hearing the auditor's review, so they're working with the auditor that comes forward and makes a report. So the auditor does the work, and then the auditor presents findings, and these findings are discussed. So the audit committee has been working with the auditor and with staff to discuss those findings as to next steps to be taken. So this is a policy review, level. Again, it's not getting into the details. Want to get Paul, please?
Did, Mr. Chairman, through the chair, John, was there a subcommittee to review the applicants, or no?
No, they were sent to the board, as a whole.
So we don't have a recommendation necessarily?
No, there's no
from-
recommendation coming from, again, Paul, said that he's fine with the candidates, whichever way the board would like to go, on this.
How many can we appoint?
There is no rule, so again, this is your committee.
Yeah.
So having a reasonable amount of people, is getting too many people
Sure.
bogs it down. And again, the audit committee only meets once or twice a year as the audit's released.
At a minimum, yep.
Yeah, and so again, this is the review of the policy, so they're not doing any auditing. Again, they are working with the auditor to discuss the auditor's comments and recommendations and discussing how or which ones should be, implemented. You don't always have to implement all recommendations, and so they assist with reviewing that and asking questions.
So, Paul, what I had asked before you came in was how many. I think, speaking for myself personally, there are 4 candidates on here that really jump out at me. 3 of which are CPAs, and another one is sort of a repeat volunteer with lengthy, with a pretty impressive financial background. I understand what you're saying about having it bog things down. If you only meet a couple of times a year, I guess my question is, would you be comfortable if we appointed 4 people instead of what I think we?
I guess you could comprise the committee however you felt. It doesn't actually have any formal vote on anything.
Okay.
They pretty much, we work through in detail, the aspects of the audit prior to the auditor coming to present to the Board of Selectmen at the end of the year like they always do.
Sure.
So prior to that meeting, we worked through it on a much more detailed level with the audit committee. So I guess technically the amount of members doesn't necessarily, there's no vote or need to have an unbalanced.
Okay.
amount of members.
It's not necessarily going to create an undue strain on John if we did have.
I don't think one member will make a difference.
Okay. Jimmy, do you have any strong feelings one way or the other on that?
No, I like the idea with the CPAs. I was actually gonna suggest if 5 was gonna be too much, but, because I hate to exclude someone that's interested, but
Yeah.
if 4's reasonable, then I think we'll go with 4 as well, but, I like the idea of having the CPAs there. I have a lot of confidence in that factor.
Yeah, and I know one of the candidates is pretty active right now, and she's somebody that asks questions and has shown an interest historically, like a hands-on interest, so, are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that, you know, honestly, Chris, some of these applicants, we've seen their names before.
Yeah.
And we were sort of limited in how many appointments we could make on other committees, so they've got this interest. And if we have an opportunity to work them into the system, I'm just fine with that.
Okay. So, okay, any other questions for Paul or John?
No.
I know, so, again, speaking for myself, the names that kind of jumped out at me were, as Jim and I had mentioned, the 3 CPAs, which I think were, and I don't want to say that if you're a CPA, you're automatically a good candidate for this. It seemingly, from the qualifications, a lot jumped off of every page. It was sort of an embarrassment of riches, I guess, so to speak, with the number. There were 5 really solid candidates. I think the ones that sort of jumped out at me were John Bergeron, David Kelly, Eileen Sickler, and I know that Sal, Mr. Mansueto, has pretty much volunteered, similar to the 5th candidate who actually served on had served on a board or on a committee. I know Sal's got an extensive financial background and has been itching to sort of participate for a little while now. I'm going to say 3,
We've
4
seen him
years.
a number of times, yeah.
So I'm open to conversation, but I know those were the ones that sort of jumped out at me. But
Do you want that in the form of a motion?
unless, yeah.
All right, then
Please.
I'll make a motion that we appoint David Kelly, John Bergeron, Eileen Sickler, and Salvatore Mansueto to the audit committee.
Second.
Motion from Jimmy, second from Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? 3-0 for that group. So, so we'll hear, a couple of times a year, you meet, and
Yep.
we'll end up here.
We'll be having a meeting probably in January. So the audit for last year is complete, so now we're at the point in time where we'll be having a meeting to start to review those results once they get finalized.
Okay. Okay, great.
Coming up soon.
Yeah, I know, speaking for myself, feedback on those members would be appreciated because it helps going forward as far as making sure that we're appointing people that.
I'm pretty hopeful I don't have to go to too many more of these.
Yeah,
John,
there you go.
you will have to go to them, so.
There you go.
I'll
Yeah,
get
but
some
these guys gotta
feedback
make sure they clean up his mess before John D. takes
There you go.
over, so.
Yeah, we dust off all those awards he's gotten, you mean?
All right. Okay, so we're good with that one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can we do 249? Can we?
Yeah, you don't have anybody else coming, John, do you? All right, come on up. Yep.
How are you, sir?
Good, how are you?
Excellent. So 249 is for a potential approval for a conservation restriction at 6 Stony Brook Road. So, John, could you give us sort of the Reader's Digest version of
Sure.
what we're doing, if you don't mind?
Sure. So a conservation restriction is kind of a formal process that we go through with the state. The Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs reviews the document, and they have to approve it. And the process formally protects a parcel of land or a portion of a parcel of land in perpetuity. We've done several of these. Probably the most recent one you might recall is the land on the old Sun Microsystems campus behind the Baxter House, or the Kent, also known as the Kent Cottage, that area in there.
Also known as where Burley lives now. Isn't that the bear's name? Isn't that?
Is that where it is?
Yeah,
I didn't know where it was last seen.
yeah, okay.
I didn't know it left Buffalo Wild
We're on a
Wings.
first-name basis now, yeah,
Hopefully it's on its way to the
We
landlord
get the same
for us.
eating habits.
yeah. I'm glad that didn't come over the, John, I'm sorry.
That's okay. And we actually have a couple of other ones in the pipeline. There's going to be one on on Corporate Drive behind the big apartment building that's being built at 100 Corporate Drive. There's a conservation restriction being worked up on that one. So this one is just a little under an acre on a single-family house lot that was built in the floodplain. They had to do some filling to build this house. It's on 6 Stony Brook Road. So most of the rear of the lot is not only floodplain, but the portion that wasn't, they had to lower to compensate for the filling that they did in the front. So this is just to help protect it so that future owners will just have that extra thing on their deed to remind them that it's protected land. So the process is we work to develop the documents, give the draft to the state, they review it. Once they say it's okay, then it gets signed by the Conservation Commission and the Board of Selectmen. The Concom's signed it already. Once you sign it, it's ready to get recorded at the Registry of Deeds.
And this was granted by, looked like it was granted by the person that developed the
Right, the
property, is that
developer,
correct?
it was part of the negotiations to actually get the permit.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. The homeowner isn't here? No, okay. Okay, anything else you feel like we should know, John? Okay,
No, so it's just, like I said, it's under an acre. It's not land that will be public land. It has no access. It's at the rear of a lot. There's no way for the public to use it. It's just stays there protected.
okay, great. So you'll need a vote from us. Does anybody want to go ahead and make the motion to approve the conservation restriction at 6 Stony Brook Road, or are there any questions or discussions?
No, I'm familiar with the property. I pass by it every day. I'm familiar with the builder. I spoke with him previously regarding this. There were no issues, so I'd make the motion to accept the easement at 6 Stony Brook Road.
Thank you. Motion from Mike,
Second.
second from Jim. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Have a
Thank you,
good
John.
holiday.
Merry Christmas.
Mike, you still waiting on people? You have everybody here?
Might have one person showing up a little late, but I think we have 4.
Why don't we sneak one more thing in and then we'll,
Okay.
so maybe we will go to, oh, he wants to sign this, okay. The guidelines, is that something we want to have a guest for, or is that
Yeah, that's,
lengthy?
Paul. Yeah, Paul would need to.
How
Why don't we
about,
get Paul?
why don't we bang out some minutes, maybe?
Okay, thank you.
The dates that we're potentially approving or discussing are November 5th, general session, November 26th, general session, and also there was a strategic planning session, November 13th in the middle, where that was a strategic planning, that was not a general session meeting. So we've looked at the minutes. Do we have any questions or comments on the minutes? No?
Questions, but I'll make a motion. We approve the minutes of November 5th, general session.
Second.
Motion from Jim, second from Mike to approve November 5th. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained. November 13th, the strategic planning.
I'll make a motion. We approve the minutes of the November 13th strategic planning meeting.
Motion from Jim.
Second.
Second from Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. And the 26th?
I'll go for the triple play. I'll make a motion. We
Yes.
approve the minutes for November 26th general session meeting.
Motion from Jim.
Second.
Second from Mike. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained. John, do you have a town administrator's report this evening, or do you want extra time on that? I can.
So, I think just a couple of things. One is just a reminder, we have a full outdoor watering ban going on. I hope nobody's running the sprinklers right now to begin with, but anyways, to meet the restrictions at DEP, we have a full outdoor watering ban, at this point in time. So, just to clarify on that piece. And I think the only thing I would add to my report is we're entering the holiday seasons. So wish the board and citizens of town a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, Happy Diwali, Happy Kwanzaa, and Festivus, Happy Festivus. So, happy holidays in general. So hopefully everybody has a, great holiday season, and everybody takes care in the new year.
Can I, Mr. Chairman, can I segue into John's water ban?
Yeah.
Discussion? I think we're all aware here on the board, we've received some emails recently on sump pumps.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
Folks pumping that basement water out into the street. And obviously, the problem with that this time of year is it turns to ice, and it's causing issues for neighbors in the areas where this is going on. So I would just like to remind folks who might be watching this evening, if you have these sump pumps, you're not allowed to pump them out to the road. They've got to stay on your property. And there are various ways to accomplish that. So the Board of Health actually, the agency in charge of that. So if folks at home want further information on where they can discharge their sump pumps, please contact the Board of Health.
Yeah, it's not even a common courtesy thing, it's beyond that, it's just simply, it's wrong to do.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of which way you direct the hose, right?
It is, well, I mean, if the property is pitched, that way, naturally you don't want it re-entering your home, but there are solutions to that. There are, temporary concrete containers that, they're not very expensive. You can dig a hole, you put them in your yard, and you can drain into that, and then it will percolate over time gradually back into the groundwater system. But the bottom line is, you cannot discharge those onto the street.
And it sounds like the Board of Health is engaged and prepared to enforce to the level that they are allowed to enforce it to. And I think we've communicated to them as a board that it's an issue that we think is a serious one. And we've agreed to cooperate any way that we can on that. Jim, anything you want to add to
It's
that?
actually just a fault what John said about the water ban. I know people aren't watering their lawn, but there are a lot of people with outdoor rinks and filling them up. Just make sure that you comply with the restrictions when you're doing that, because those take a lot of water as well.
Thank you for that. Successful tree lighting, again this year, followed by fireworks. That was pretty neat. And they moved it to a Saturday, it looks like, this year. So the Common looks nice, always a great time of year. And I thought you summed up the holiday greetings appropriately. This will be your final holiday email that you'll send out. For folks that don't know, that don't get them, John is rather eloquent when it comes to recognizing holidays and everything from Labor Day to July 4th to Mo from the Three Stooges' birthday. I mean, he always comes up with a really appropriate email, so I know I'm looking forward to that. I'm gonna miss those, and I hope we can maybe get those from you down the line. I'm sure Paul would, maybe you could, be the guest emailer, so to speak.
No more in-law jokes, you're not gonna see.
No more in-law jokes, yeah. I suspect Paul won't mind getting help with stuff like that. I can't see him sitting down and cranking out a full page on the 4th of July or at holiday time. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Okay. I'll go ahead. Those are the subcommittee. Anything else?
Well, I had a full
Yeah.
committee report, rather prefer to wait till
That's fine.
the end of the session.
So we'll do that at the end. Is there any old business or new business that anybody wants to mention? Or does it tie in with your, okay. And then, citizens' time. Any citizens' time for this evening? Okay. And we'll ask, if anybody comes in, we'll throw that again. Okay, so,
Too late,
say it again.
too late. You asked.
So, unless, now would be the time to speak or forever hold your peace, I'd like to go ahead and do 250 for the Board of Trustees if we can.
So if we can ask the trustee members to take seats at the table, they're actually voting members. So what we have is so how many trustee members do we have? 3? 3. And that's out of 5, right?
6.
6, but 1 is open.
Yes.
So 3, so we have a quorum of the 2 boards. So this is an appointment of an open seat to the Board of Library Trustees.
Who wants the gavel?
So, so if we may have the 3 members of the trustees introduce themselves to the audience.
I'm Ram Boragante, trustee, elected this year.
Adam Woodbury, Board of Trustees Chairman.
Rob Newfield, Board of Trustees,
Vice Chair.
Vice Chairman.
So we had an opening on the Board of Trustees. Someone resigned in mid-year, and when that occurs, under general law, what occurs is a joint session of the Board of Selectmen and the board with the opening. So this is a joint meeting of the trustees and the Board of Selectmen, and you'll be choosing a candidate as one team. So there are 6 votes, on the table this evening. You have 2 candidates.
We actually had 1 withdraw.
1 withdraw, so only 1 candidate. This is making things a little bit more simple. So there's 1 candidate submitted for the position, and you can interview, and then a roll call vote is necessary per law for the appointment. And the person who is appointed serves until the next election. So even if there was a full 3 years, if there was 2 years left, they only serve to the next election, and then that seat becomes open for 1 year term at that point. So I'm not sure what the circumstances are here. So that's the procedure, Mr. Chairman. So you have 6 members voting by roll to fill a open seat on the library trustees.
Excellent. So thank you very much. Who are do you want to, as a chairman, do you want to mention something, or do you, anything beyond what John said?
Oh, no, so yeah, just to expand on that, yeah, it is a position that has a one year and 4 months to go. So there will be a 1-year position open in April, in addition to the 2 positions. And so it was unfortunate that the trustee had to resign. But we're using this as an opportunity to try to find new candidates and rouse interest for April. And so we were very grateful for the candidates we did have. They came to a trustees meeting we had last week, at which point we scared a candidate off. So we're gonna have to improve our our practices there.
They both look pretty solid, Adam.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. I really wanted to have both of them, and I'm hoping that the other candidate may reconsider in April. I think both brought really great perspectives, and very, very fortunate to have the interest.
Excellent. Seemingly a high level of energy on this group now, so that's good. That's nice to see. Anything else?
No, sir.
Do you want to add anything, or?
Absolutely. Haral has shown interest in the past already by running as a candidate this year. Hard to think in terms of that being not anything but last year. But she's been a member of the Friends Board as well, and she's assisted them greatly with her accounting knowledge. And so I certainly look forward to her assisting us at the library in a position of trustee, if that's the way the agreement goes or the decision goes.
Okay, very good. So it looks like we have 1 candidate, Haral Gandhi, and you've got experience at another local library, so I know that kind of jumped off the page for a lot of us. So we appreciate your interest, certainly. Do you have any questions for anybody up here before we allow folks to ask questions of you? No? Do we have any questions for Haral?
I don't have a question, actually, Adam. Could remind me, who was the member that retired?
Ann Way.
Okay, all right, I might want to thank her for her service.
Yes, we do.
To the Board of Trustees. No, you're a very impressive resume, and I'm anxious to hear the recommendation from the trustees.
Excellent. So it's appropriate for somebody to make a motion at this point? Okay, so we will defer to you guys for that. If one of you wants to make a motion to, motion to approve, Haral?
I'll make a motion for Hero Gandhi to be library trustee for next year, the remaining term.
Excellent. So we have a motion, and do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Excellent. Second. We have a motion and a second for Haral. All in favor?
Roll call.
Say it again.
John said.
Okay.
Roll call, please,
Roll
yes.
Would you like me to do that? Frank?
Absolutely.
Okay. Jim Tigas, please.
Aye.
Mike Runyon.
Aye.
And Chris Hartman.
Aye.
And Ram, Robert.
Maura Gandhi, aye.
Thank you very much. And Adam Blueberry.
Aye.
And Rob Newfield.
Aye.
Newfield, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
No aye.
Well, you're in for better or for worse. So, welcome, and thank you very much for putting your name forward. And we're also grateful for the other candidate, and as you mentioned, Adam, hopefully that's somebody that will stay interested. It's always good to see new names, and anytime anybody wants to give their time, I think we're sincerely appreciative of that.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So anything new over at the library that you want to take time to
Actually, yeah, I would like,
stump right now? Or
I would, actually.
Let's keep it to, a certain amount of.
Will do.
Within 2 minutes, right?
I'm just gonna list off everything they offer.
Go ahead.
Each item. No, I wanna call out Mike and his team. They've really been expanding their work on programming, and they just had an author last Thursday and had, I believe, 111 people in the audience attend the program. Really gave the parking lot its its measure.
Yeah, it was a great event. Marnie Smith is our current assistant director, and she's in charge of the adult programming. And it's difficult because there's a lot that goes on as part and parcel of programming for all the adults in Burlington who come into the library, in addition to doing administrative duties as an assistant director. But she's already started doubling our numbers for program attendance within just 6 months of expanding our programming. And we can do a lot more than that, I know. And we're starting to run into man hours being one of those walls, and as Adam mentioned, parking spaces being another one of those walls.
All right, enough about the parking spaces.
Especially on a night when there's a trustees meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was strategically decided to have a trustees meeting. But no, it's been wonderful, and I'm very grateful for the residents of Burlington for being such strong supporters of the library and giving us all these opportunities to bring these services to the town. So thank you.
Trustees can always park in our lot here and walk over.
Absolutely. That's what I suggested, actually.
Yeah, I just want to close with, the library recently went through its strategic 5-year plan. So Mike is, I think, 1.5 years into his tenure here. So, and one of the first tasks for him was to really set the vision for going forward for 5 years, what the library is going to offer in terms of services, where the patrons are going, where the services are going, what the community needs. And so the increase in programming was something that had been called for by the citizens in the town, and so that's part of where we're investing our efforts. But we're also looking for other new services and exciting things. Yeah, good things to come.
No
We're
easy,
doing some fun stuff soon.
no easy task trying to plan ahead 5 years with technology, it's changing so rapidly. I think you do a great job keeping up with that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could echo that, I was gonna say that with the internet, and you hear all these stories about libraries downsizing and some of them closing, I think it's phenomenal that we're increasing, so kudos to you and your staff and the trustees for what they do.
Certainly one of the better resources that we offer, so thanks, everybody, for your time and for your work.
Thank you very much.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
And congratulations. Hello.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Welcome aboard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your
Thank you,
time.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, nice to see you.
Right, my darling.
Good seeing you.
So should we pop down to 253? Do we want to talk about the town meeting warrant?
Yep, that's fine.
Great.
So again, we're in the process. Betty's received the various things, so we're putting together the town meeting warrant at this point for the January town meeting. We'll have a couple of financial issues such as contracts, as we discussed earlier tonight, like with the police command contract. Going forward, I think some things will be revisited again. At this town meeting, we have
Oh, yeah, the bag
the
article.
bag articles back. So we can look forward to another healthy discussion on bags. So, so that warrant is being put together by Betty at this time.
Yep.
It's at the list. So we've got zoning bylaw. I know there's been a lot of discussions on the life science amendment from the planning board. We need to fix on our end the water rates, you know, set up the funds collected through the water rates based on the new rates we're charging for that future project, and how to set aside those funds. And then the normal things on financial, such as replenish the reserve fund and whether we wish to transfer free cash into stabilization. And again, the checkout bags, the retail checkout bags, and then amend the town meeting warrant articles. So there's not too many articles at this point on the warrant, but a couple of healthy ones. So the warrant's closed, and we'll be preparing that for signature at your next board meeting in January.
And that is on Monday, the 28th.
The town meeting, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, very good. Anything to add on that? Any questions? No. So that's in the way you're looking for an approval. You're looking for us to approve the warrant
No,
tonight?
no, just, it's a report.
Do that at the first January, well, you need us to do that at the January meeting?
Correct.
Okay, okay. All right, anything else on that?
No.
Paul, can we do the guidelines, or are we waiting on anything or anybody for that? So why don't we jump to that, 254, fiscal year 2019 financial guidelines. And that's a separate item for the Department of Revenue Financial Management Structure Review, right?
Yes.
Do you have a preference which one goes first?
Let's do the guidelines first, I guess.
Okay, fire away, somebody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple weeks ago, we were able to meet for our annual guideline meeting in the morning with members of the Board of Selectmen, School Committee, Ways and Means, and various town financial officials in attendance. Chairman Hartling and Selectman Hogan represented the board at that meeting, where we had a healthy discussion about the town's finances and, you know, where we were willing to go for fiscal 2020 for financial guidelines. Just to recap from the board, we closed out fiscal year 18 on June 30th, 2018. So as you know, the town's on a fiscal year. We had a very good year. It probably was slightly less than what we had the previous year, but that may go down as, you know, one of the town's all-time best financial years. So we did slightly, a little bit less than that with our free cash at $11.6 million. In the stabilization fund on June 30, we had $8.8 million at that time. Our OPEB fund at that time was $6.6 million, and we added another $1.1 million at the previous town meeting. And probably the best statistic from what I can see is our levy capacity grew to $11.5 million. That is the amount of money annually that we are not taxing the citizens that we would be able to under Proposition 2.5. So I think it shows that all of our boards, elected officials, appointed officials, and town meeting have been very prudent in terms of accessing the tax levy to fund services around here. We had a pretty healthy discussion and debate, sort of based upon what the needs are on the general government side of things going forward, and we got to understand a little bit about the needs of the school department in the upcoming year. We made a recommendation on a guideline, and we were able to negotiate to something slightly different. I think we ended up in an area where all parties sort of left the table a little bit unsatisfied, which I think is representative of a sort of a fair compromise amongst the different officials. We made it clear to everybody in attendance about the board and its constant message to us as the administration of the town to maintain a very reasonable increase on our residents' tax bills. So that's, our position as we head into guidelines. We're also, as I mentioned, able to sort of hear about the spending needs for some of the departments and the type of pressures they'd be facing in the upcoming year. So at the end of the day, we were able to negotiate budget guidelines as follows. We ended up on a 4.5% tax levy increase. That's down. The tax rate we just said about a month ago was based upon a 5% tax levy increase. And we're able to agree to a 3.5% operating budget increase, which is the big number on the spending side. So that's a blended rate between the town and the school. Between the two bodies, we will average out to 3.5% on operating. So that was slightly higher than this past year on the operating budget. So we brought the tax levy down, and the operating budget percentage is a little bit higher than last year based on some contractual items. And the only other thing that we agreed to was to discuss a school bus contract outside of these guidelines. So the school busing contract is up this year. That is a potential problem area for them. So we've agreed amongst all the officials to hold that aside and consider it in terms of the budget as we move forward in the process. That's essentially a summary. I know Betty gave you some handouts. One of the handouts is the supplementary tax information that compares us to our other neighboring communities. I think you'll see on that we compare very favorably to our neighbors. Every resident's tax bill is very important to them, which is why we understand the message that we get from the board to consider the impact on taxes. But I think what you'll find when you look at the comparative data is the town of Burlington is doing very well in comparison to our neighbors in terms of what it costs to live here in comparison to what types of services are offered. So those are essentially the group of documents that you were provided with tonight. And I'd be happy to answer any questions in terms of the guideline meetings or how we arrived where we did.
Do you have, Mike, any questions? Not right now.
Yeah, I did actually. Paul, it was reported last week the school committee was again denied funding for the HVAC there. How long are we going to be able to kick the can on that one?
We have a meeting set up with Superintendent Conti and his folks in the upcoming weeks to sort of discuss how they want to structure their building projects on our long-term debt plan. So the number one priority for them has been the high school. They're reconsidering their position now, which, as you indicate, doesn't mean that we can probably just not do anything at the high school, but it might be something different from what they're proposing now in order to replace some of those key systems perhaps. But we're looking for we'll be having a more in-depth discussion with Superintendent Conti on that in the upcoming weeks and try to figure out how we can continue to keep our debt schedule in check, and they can let us know that they may have an updated list of priorities as to what they might like to do next. But the high school, up until this point, was in the debt schedule if contingent upon getting the state funding, so.
Yeah, I know that the estimates, the cost estimates have gone up dramatically over the last 6 to 7 years since we first started talking about that.
I think the scope of the project was slightly different too. I think it started out as strictly an HVAC renovation, but as it proceeded through, there was some science lab upgrades and things of that nature that I know that Superintendent Conti felt like these renovations would give the town another 40 years out of the school. So it was a larger overhaul of the overall systems of the building.
Seems like the state's more amenable when it comes to asking for a new building than for repairs, even of this size.
Yeah,
So-
I don't know if there's 5 or 6 consecutive years, I think. I thought hopefully would
I think it's
eventually get to it, yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I'm fine.
Paul, what constitutes to you, quote-unquote, a good year, accounting-wise? Just in a nutshell for...
Yeah, in about the simplest terms, in a good year, we collect more revenue than we budgeted, and we spend less on on different services than we budgeted. That's what equals a good year for the town. You know, aside from that, another thing that will contribute to a good year is a strong local economy, which I know the board knows we've had a really great local economy over the past 6 or 7 years since Petron has been here. It's been pretty easy for him during the budget process.
Good timing.
I think I read in the newspaper the other day, and I have an idea. I know what we went up on the average single-family home. Jim Doherty, the assessor, was here and spoke about exactly what the impact would be on businesses, on residents. I think I read the other day that a nearby town just passed and imposed a $200 increase in the annual cost to collect trash in that town. So another $200 just to take the trash. And
Not tax deductible either.
What's that?
It's not tax deductible.
How
either.
is that not, yeah, if the towns, anyway. So it kind of, you know, like you mentioned, Paul, I think, going into the meeting, I think this seemed to be a year where, seemed like, you know, between the, some of the issues like the water, it just seemed like there were more comments about, oh, you know, this isn't going so great to us, and taxes, what, it seemed like this was a year that people really wanted some, a conservative approach, and while not perfect, I think it's certainly a little more conservative than,
Yeah, we're conservative by nature in the finance field.
Yeah.
In local government, so it's conservatively, even more conservative. But
Excellent.
your point is well taken.
so, so we need some sort of an action on 254 regarding the fiscal year. So it's 2020, correct?
Yes, that's the upcoming year that will start next July 1st.
Yeah.
And that's the budget that we'll be working on in the upcoming months to present to town meeting in May.
So approval for the fiscal year 2020 financial guidelines.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman. I move that we approve of 4.5% levy,
Tax levy
tax
increase.
levy, the tax levy at 4.5% and the operating budget at 3.5% for fiscal '20.
I'll second that.
Motion from Mike, second from Jim. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? 300.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Paul.
And then
I'm just waiting for 7 years from now to compare my record to his record, you know, and see what happens. Because I was curious as to what he was going to say what a good accounting year is, because, you know, according to him in discussions with me, there's never, you know, a good accounting
Yep.
year, you know. It's always doom and gloom, so.
all of your best accountants certainly do have a sky is falling mentality, and
Uh-huh.
that has, you know, we've got a little something put aside for a rainy day as a result, so thank you for that. 255 is Department of Revenue Financial Management Structure Review. Who would like to speak on that?
Oh, okay. Yes, Mr. Chairman,
Oh,
if I may.
yeah.
This item is part and parcel of the Government Review Committee that we had earlier this year. You may recall they were here in front of us, I believe it was back in October, September or October, with their sharing their results and recommendations to the board on whether or not there were some issues that need to be addressed and whether we should review them further. This is a request from the committee. It was high on their priority list. This is an independent third-party review. It is conducted by the Department of Revenue. They don't focus on the entire picture here. This is strictly a financial piece of, a component of our town government. Is that correct, John?
Yes, the financial departments, so they look at the operations of financial departments.
Right. This is performed by the Department of Revenue at no cost to the town of Burlington. I think the timing is right, given the fact that we've introduced our new team with Mr. Sagarino, Mr.
Denizio.
Denizio, thank you. It's gonna take me a couple of times to get that time out. So I'd like to take advantage of that government, that government review study from the Department of Revenue and forward the results to the board and the Government Review Committee, which is still, in fact, needs to be reconstituted, and we're working on a charge for that new committee.
So this is sort of a preview this evening, not, you're not looking for an action from us, so to speak, or are you?
I would like to start the process. I don't know how long it takes to fill out the application and get them to actually come in and do their, I don't believe it takes them very long once they're.
No, it's
How does it-
scheduling. If there's an opening next week, they could be here next week, or it could be a month or 2 months down the road. It's as when they have an opening. They do several of these a year, so this is part of what they do on a regular basis. And you can go up on their website and see many other towns, they put, all their reports are on their website. If you want to take a look at, what they look like in general.
So I don't have any questions. Jim, do you have a question?
No questions, but was that a motion that you made, Mike, or?
Well, I'm trying to get the feel of
So this is,
the board
if I
here.
understand this correctly, this is just looking at our team, so to speak, and see if it's set up properly, functioning properly, if any recommendations.
They look at the financial operations of our departments, so typically treasury, assessing, and accounting. They look at those, they come in and they review best practices, and are there suggestions that could be made? So it's not an audit, it's not, it's recommendations, it's a review. So there's nothing binding. They simply come in and use their expertise because they oversee these departments, for the whole state. And so they send a team in and they will make recommendations as to best practices. Things, it might be very simple, as to, taking care of some reconciliation, or it might be saying that you should be having some sort of reorganization. So it's a complete review. And again, if you're interested, you can go on their website. They're all posted, from several years, and you can go in and take a look and see what, a review in another community may look like.
Have we ever done this?
We have not, to my knowledge, here in Burlington. But again, they do, 15 a year. I mean, they do many a year throughout the state. And it has to be by invitation of the Board of Selectmen, and that's what would be the vote if the board wishes. You would have to, take a vote to invite the DOR to come in and do that review here.
And we're not bound to accept.
No, it's a report. It can be shelved, or, or you can attempt to use that as a guideline for making change if you feel that change is necessary.
You might want to take a piece of it, you may want to discard the whole thing. I don't know, just something for us to review. I thought it would be significant, given the timing of, as we
I agree.
chug along in the first few months of 2019 as to responsibilities and duties and the role of these integral departments here in Burlington.
So I'll make a motion. Jimmy, any questions? Are you all set?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
So I'll make a motion that we invite the Department of Revenue Financial Management Structure Review to come in and work with the Government Review Committee.
Well, then submit.
Just to invite them to come in and do a departmental, finance department review.
So,
Right, and that'll be submitted to the Board of Selectmen. We decide whether to forward it or.
excellent. So I will make that motion.
Second.
Second from Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. 3-0-0.
So with that, we can submit the letter to the state making the request, and that will begin the wheels of setting up them coming out to a review.
Perfect, thank you.
Paul, you might want to notify our departments, of this potentially happening.
How was the retention of the folks that, as far as the members of that committee in terms of staff?
About 50-50, I believe. Some of them some of the members were interested in just getting the ball started, and others are interested in continuing that charge. So we're going to be looking, that original committee, the focus was rather narrow. The committee was made up mostly of folks with some government experience here in Burlington. When the new charge comes out, we hoping to broaden that scope to include all segments of the community. I don't even know exactly what number that's going to be yet, but we're hoping to attract, just as we did for the audit committee. I believe we'd be able to attract some talented people here in Burlington to fill those vacancies. Hope to do that January, February.
Okay, thank you for the update. Anything else on that? No?
No.
All right. The next item on the agenda, let's circle back to 251, which was scheduled for 6:10. And this is a public hearing for the potential approval of a change of ownership interest in the all alcohol license for Burton's Grill of Burlington LLC, doing business as Burton's Grill at 43 Middlesex Turnpike. Hello there.
Good evening. My name is Gregory DeMarcus. I'm an attorney in Lynn, and I represent the licensee, Burton's Grill of Burlington LLC. And we're here for a technical correction of a license application which was filed in 2011. Inadvertently, Burton's Grill LLC was Burton's Grill of Burlington LLC is part of a chain. And this, throughout the United States, there's 15 Burton Grills and there's 5 Red Heat Taverns. And in every one of them, the single member of each licensee is Burton's Grill LLC. And we noticed that in this particular license, Burton's Grill LLC was inadvertently not listed as the sole member of Burton's Grill of Burlington LLC. Instead, the individual members of the parent, Burton's Grill LLC, were listed as the managers, as the members. So what the purpose of this application is to correct that. It's the same people involved. There's no transaction. There's no financial. There's no money involved. There's nothing being done except to correct a technical error that was made when we filed the application, for which we apologize. But there's nothing new happening. The same managers in the LLCs, the same members.
Does the name change at all?
No, the name stays the same. The only thing that will change is instead of the individuals being listed as the members of the licensee, Burton's Grill of Burlington LLC, Burton's Grill LLC will be the single member, and we've listed the members of Burton's Grill LLC in their percentages. So we apologize.
Okay.
I'm glad you cleared that up, because when I was going through this, I didn't know what the heck I was reading.
A lot of names.
Honestly, yeah.
We called Ralph Sacramone, who's the executive director of the ABCC, and we said, look, there's a technical error here, but he said we had to go back to the local board and file the application and do it that way. So I apologize for the confusion. There's nothing else going on. It's same manager on the license, you know. I don't know if you guys, if you're familiar with the restaurant, it's a really well-run restaurant. It's got a great reputation throughout Massachusetts, and nothing's gonna change.
Okay.
Sounds like it's just, everything's up on the state level.
Okay. Jim, Mike, any questions?
It sounds like you're just adding a name that wasn't on there. Is that
Right, and instead of the individuals being listed as the licensee, I'm making the parent company, which it should have been, Burton's Grill LLC, listed as the member, and now the individuals are listed as the members of that parent company.
Any questions on behalf of administration? No? Seems pretty straightforward. Does anybody wanna, so this is a public hearing, so we should ask if there anybody in the room that has a question or a comment? No? Okay, no comment from the public, so we
Mr.
should,
Chairman, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
motion from Jim and second from Mike to close the public hearing. All in favor of closing the public hearing? Aye. Opposed, abstained, so the public hearing is hereby closed on this matter. And now for the item, 251, for the potential approval, a change of ownership interest, all alcohol license, Burton's Grill of Burlington LLC, doing business as Burton's Grill, 43 Middlesex Turnpike. Does anybody have a motion they wish to put forward on that?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we approve the change of ownership interest and all alcohol license, Burton's Grill of Burlington LLC, doing business as Burton's Grill, 43 Middlesex Turnpike.
Second.
So motion from Jim, second from Mike, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, 300.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right. Next item is one of those ones that we sort of look up and we are thankful for having Betty McDonough in our lives. This is the annual approval or discussion thereof centered around 2019 license renewals. And this covers everything from alcohol to amusement, automobile Class 1, automobile Class 2, cafeteria, entertainment, inn-holder, livery, theater, victualler, and weigher. Looking through the notes or the backup provided to us, John, were there any concerns on the behalf of administration that you recognized that I didn't by looking through the
No,
backup?
so everything's been cleaned up. We had one issue, and they've come in and we've taken care of that. So other than that, everything's ready for renewal.
The restaurants were great, everybody got everything in on time, we didn't have to chase anybody,
Okay,
taxes are fine, and, there's a couple of police reports in there, they're registering everybody, they're getting everybody registered, which is part of your server's, part of your server's contract, regulations.
Jim, anything from a law enforcement perspective that we needed to pay particular attention to? It looked like pretty much anybody who hadn't sought information from our enforcement folks at the police department either has that scheduled or is in the process of trying to get that scheduled, so nothing jumped out at me
No,
there.
nothing's jumping out, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick question, if I may, through you to Betty. So I know we had a few recent changes with liquor licenses. That's all reflected in the backup material and all the recent changes?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So, regarding the potential approval of those 2019 license renewals, if there are no other questions, I welcome a motion on that.
How do you want, do we need to do them individually?
I'll tell you, given,
Nothing's been held. In previous years, if there was an item, we would hold it for discussion after everything else was done. It seems to be perfectly clean this
You
year.
can approve it as a list if you wish, save time.
yeah, the backup sort of projects a clean and no questions from administration.
One
so
motion would suffice.
I like the idea of doing it as a group.
If there's no objection, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2019 license renewals as listed in the backup material.
Motion from Mike to approve the whole lot.
Second.
Second from Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. So, everybody's up.
I could comment too, Sandy Madigan did a fantastic job as well on all the other licenses beyond liquors. And Jean Gallant is working on making sure everybody gets everything in and getting everything mailed out now that the license is assigned.
You know, I did have one, and we can talk about it later, but is there any way to, some of these restaurants and other businesses in town sometimes get 3, 4, 5, 6 different letters or applications from us. Is there any way to sort of bundle that all together and
I think it's been
send
tried.
just one?
I think it's been tried in the past, but there's so many departments in the town. You know, if you're talking about our department, we could try, we could work on it. But there's so many other licenses, town clerk, board of
Okay,
health.
so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I get it, okay.
And there's, you know, we have different reporting bosses, you know, so Board of Health and, you know, so it's like, yeah, let's not mix.
Fair enough.
If it ain't broke, words to live by, from Mike Runyon. So, subcommittee reports. Jim, did I ask you earlier if you had one?
Yeah, I'm all set on that.
Okay. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My
Yes, sir.
my annual speech regarding the town and all the wonderful folks that work here and volunteer here.
Another highlight of the year.
I do it every year,
Yes.
and I'm just going to take a moment to do this one. I would just like to reflect on some of our successes as well as some of our shortcomings for 2018 and recognize our employees and volunteers that make Burlington a great place to live and work. We don't have to look too far to see the wonderful work that our recreation department does for us all year. Just look out at the town common tonight. Our police, fire, and DPW workers, day in and day out, performing their duties, oftentimes in miserable conditions, while the rest of us are at home in bed. The staff here at Town Hall, the COA, the Veterans Services, Health Department, Children and Family Services, I can go on and on and on. You know, that they provide support and services to our community every day, and I thank you for that. We have enjoyed many successes as a board during this past year, including completion of 33 Center Street, the Human Services Building, Fire Station 2 is well underway, the MWRA contracts are in place, and the new DPW facility is in design stage. Perhaps most importantly is that our new management team is in place with Paul Sagarino and John Denizio. We're looking forward to working with them, and I think, again, because Burlington is such a great place to live and work, that we had you know, really in a superior position to hire superior people. The one disappointment I have, and that is an understatement, is that our paramedic program is not yet in place, and I hope and I will make that a priority for the coming year. I will conclude by thanking my colleagues and our staff for all the hard work and effort you put into your work on behalf of the residents of Burlington. Merry Christmas to you all and to our viewers tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well said. Is there a motion to
Is that it?
Yes.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Motion by Jim to adjourn, second from Mike. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.